There are certain personality types that seem to attract narcissists in their lives like a magnet. And these personality types are people who had a traumatic childhood, highly sensitive people and empath, neurodivergent people as well, successful people and overachievers, and people with an anxious/disorganized attachment style. And we explore each personality and why they are so in attraction with narcissists in detail today. But if they know how to spot a narcissist early, they can and should break the attraction instantly. So in the end of this video, I will give to you the 3 biggest signs and red flags of a narcissist to look out for each of these personality types. So let's start with the person who experienced childhood trauma. Welcome to today's episode. My name is Robert, and today's video is based on my own experience and research. I want to mention that I am not a healthcare professional myself. I offer a client's perspective on this topic, and I have a lot to share, especially about this first personality type, which is people who had a traumatic childhood. Let's start with personality type number 1 that attracts narcissists regularly, which are childhood trauma survivors. And I have this model here of the magnet, and the magnet displays the anti-receptive relationship between the narcissist and the childhood trauma survivors. And both sides, this is what anti-receptive mean, attract each other magically or magnetically. I want to start with the bottom side here of the childhood trauma survivor's perspective, and then have a look how that side truly attracts the narcissist. Now, childhood trauma survivors usually unconsciously repeat and recreate familiar patterns of toxic relationships. They often feel at home in chaos or when neglected. And this is because many people with childhood trauma, per definition, have experienced a chaotic and toxic family system at home. They are used to getting neglected. They are used to getting abandoned, and they're used to getting manipulated, and this is why they attract it, because it feels so familiar and somehow right to them, even if it's not healthy. Codependency is another factor here. They derive their self-worth from being needed. They often ignore their own needs and accept unhealthy relationship dynamics, again, because they are so familiar to them. And this way, they develop a codependent, often even addictive behavior with other people. They have such strong anxieties and fears around becoming abandoned or becoming neglected or ending up in chaos, that they become addicted to another person. They need another person to fill this void that they have within them. Another thing is that they believe that they can fix or heal or save the narcissist. They actually can't do that because someone with narcissism has a personality disorder, and narcissists usually do not believe that they need to be saved or healed or that there is anything to be fixed. So you can't heal a person who's not understanding that they're sick. But this is what trauma survivors usually do. Another factor I want to take into account here is BPD, borderline personality disorder. That's also closely tied to complex trauma, and usually people with BPD have also a strong fear of abandonment. And all of these things, now we look at the narcissistic side, attract narcissists like a magnet, because the narcissist exploits the low self-esteem and the insecurities of the trauma survivor. The narcissist is the enabler for unhealthy behavior in codependent people. Also, is the enabler for addictions, for heavy coping mechanisms, for things people with trauma do in order to re-regulate, which they are often not aware of. They also identify the weaknesses and the triggers of the childhood trauma survivor, and in the worst case, which happens quite often, re-traumatize them instead of helping them to heal. To make this more relatable, I would like you to imagine that you are now someone who has the following life story. Imagine you grew up in a home where love was conditional and care often felt like control. Your parents may have been emotionally unavailable, critical, or even narcissistic themselves, leaving you walking on eggshells, constantly trying to earn their approval. You'll learn to prioritize their needs over your own, suppressing your emotions and becoming hyper-aware of others' feelings to avoid conflict or rejection. A typical childhood trauma history so far. Now, as an adult, you're then often drawn to relationships that feel familiar to this childhood that programmed you that way. A narcissist enters your life, charming and confident, making you feel seen for the first time in your life. Wow, this is the perfect partner, you might think. But soon, they exploit your empathy, pushing your boundaries and feeding your fear of abandonment. Just like in childhood, you take on the emotional tension, hoping your love and effort can fix everything in the relationship. You are used to it and you don't know it another way, again, because it feels so familiar to you, and you truly believe that relationships have to be this way. What you do then is, you might stay in that relationship believing that you can heal the narcissist, but no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you give, it won't be ever enough. And you have to understand that this isn't love. No, it's a survival pattern shaped by a childhood wound that is actually playing here. Sounds familiar? Well, then it's very important at first to recognize the cycle and where it comes from, break free from it, and reclaim your worth if you're a childhood trauma survivor. And this is also true for the other personality types we'll talk about in a bit. Let's dive into the second one, which is highly sensitive person or highly sensitive people in general. Now, again, let's have a look at the magnet model here. Highly sensitive people or really empathetic people usually give a lot of attention. They're empathetic listeners. They have a deep desire for understanding, for helping and healing other people. And highly sensitive people also pick up on emotional subtleties and often feel responsible for other people's feelings. They have a depth of feeling and a tendency to avoid confrontation, which in a relationship with a narcissist can lead them to stay in those relationships longer. And those characteristics are the perfect ground for narcissistic abuse, because the narcissist usually feels entitled to receive attention, they exploit other people's empathy, they love to express and be at the center, and they long for being listened and to be understood. When the narcissist is in a relationship with a highly sensitive person, they usually love their ability to tune into other people's feelings, which make them the ideal source of supply for the narcissistic ego. This is why we have such a magnetic attraction here between those personality types. And this dynamic makes a lot of sense because when you are a highly sensitive empath and a narcissist enters your life, they are drawn to exactly that empathy and compassion that you spread. And at first, it might be possible that they make you feel special, but soon they will begin to exploit your sensitivity, all the emotional weight you will carry in the relationship, while your own needs and emotions are ignored. Sensitivity and empathy are definitely one of the biggest attraction triggers for narcissists, so please, HSPs and empaths, look out there if you have narcissists around. Let's talk about personality type number 3 that attract narcissists like a magnet, and those are neurodivergent people. And some of you might say now, what? How is that possible? Why neurodivergent people? How could they attract narcissists? Well, let me explain. For people who have autism or who have ADHD, it's often true that they're also highly sensitive empath. And they have difficulties setting their own boundaries, which the narcissist in the end will definitely embrace. Why do they have difficulties doing that? like highly sensitive people or people with childhood trauma, which they also often have, they have never learned to set their own boundaries. And quite often they also struggle with communicating needs or expressing emotions because since they were born, they often have the feeling that they're somehow wrong, that they're aliens, that their needs and emotions are somehow weird, so they repress them. They might also have difficulties understanding social cues in general and overlook narcissistic traits more easily this way. And when we have a look at the narcissistic side here, we say that neurodivergent people often also have trauma, as I said, which empowers the narcissist especially to exploit their low self-esteem and insecurities again. And what's also interesting here is that when you are neurodivergent, when you are different in general and not neurotypical, that reinforces the narcissist's sense of superiority. You are special. I want you in my life to increase my status and image, because the narcissist usually looks for things that are special and can increase their image. For this personality type, I would like to share the story of Lisa with you now. Lisa, a neurodivergent woman with ADHD and autism, is by nature deeply empathetic but sometimes quite inattentive because of her ADHD. Growing up, she was often criticized for being different, an inattentive alien, too sensitive, etc. So she had to prove her worth, especially to her parents. At some point of her life, she met Jake. Jake is a narcissist. He charms her by praising her uniqueness, again, because she's different and not neurotypical. But over time, he starts to criticize her neurodivergence. He constantly says that she wouldn't understand him and shouldn't be so inattentive and hyper-focused. So she works harder to please him, but Jake continues to judge her for just being Lisa, leaving her drained and questioning herself. Now, in the best case scenario here, Lisa realizes it's not her traits, but Jake's exploitation that is toxic in the relationship. In the worst case scenario, she stays with him and becomes desperately and the victim of his constant abuse. Personality type number 4, successful people. Also interesting because usually would think, wait, narcissists, they usually strive for being very successful. They strive for being different, for being powerful, for having a lot of status. Why are they attracted to those people who are also very successful or high achievers and performers? Let me explain. First of all, even secure individuals may fall for the charm of a narcissist. Even secure, successful individuals. Now, why do successful people meet narcissists in general? Because they offer a lot of status and value that the narcissist is very attracted to in the first place. Overachievers might also tie their worth to accomplishments, making them susceptible to narcissists and their need to compete or take credit. Because this is what also narcissistic dynamics look like. They always want to compete and become the person with the higher status in the relationship because they can't stand with being someone with a lower status. Looking at the narcissistic side, we see that they want to bask in successful people's achievements and enhance their own image. They try to charm the successful people and make them compliments to win them over, because they want to increase their status again. And they're also drawn to the discipline and drive of overachievers as it reflects well on them and boosts their image as well. Let's understand this dynamic by the story of Alex and Liam here. Alex is a successful graphic designer known for his creativity and ambition, and he grew up in a household where his accomplishments were never enough, driving him to work tirelessly to prove his worth to his parents, who only rewarded results and perfectionism. When he got older, his career has become his identity, a shield to mask the lingering insecurities from his childhood. And he had many insecurities, never fitting in and having his coming out as a gay man at the age of 19 that especially his dad never truly accepted. When Alex met Liam then, a charming and confident man and narcissist, he feels seen for the first time as a person and man. Liam praises Alex's work and calls him inspiring, making Alex feel like he's finally found someone who values him. But as time goes on, Liam begins to belittle Alex's achievements subtly, questioning his choices and shifting attention to his own needs and desires. And over time, Alex starts doubting himself more and more, working harder to gain Liam's approval, pouring energy into the relationship that Liam never reciprocates. His relationship with Liam reminds him more and more to his relationship with his dad, who also had narcissistic tendencies. Liam thrives on Alex's success, using it to elevate his own image while constantly keeping Alex emotionally off balance on purpose. And I truly hope, Alex, when you hear this, that you find out about Liam's narcissism and end that relationship quickly. We will talk about the possible signs on how to spot a narcissist like Liam here after this last personality type, which is anxiously and disorganized attached people. Let's talk about the anxiously attached or disorganized attached side here first again on the magnet model. For anxiously attached people, it's true that they usually have a really strong sense of abandonment. And they try everything to please other people, to please the partner, in this case to please the narcissist. They believe, I'm not okay, but other people are okay, and therefore the narcissist is okay, which makes this attachment style the ideal basis for narcissistic abuse again. For the disorganized attachment, it's true that they unconsciously recreate familiar patterns of toxic relationships, and they often feel at home in chaos or neglect, creating a push-pull dynamic with the narcissist. Let's have a look at the narcissistic side here. What are they doing with an insecurely, anxiously attached person? Well, manipulation is definitely a huge term here. They manipulate the anxiously attached person and use their fear of abandonment. They keep them at distance to trigger exactly this fear, making them super needy and bounding them this way. Usually the anxiously attached person won't leave the relationship anyway because they are so scared and so afraid of getting abandoned and being alone. And the narcissist will also create a push-pull dance with the disorganized attached person, means keeping them at a distance when the disorganized attached person is creating drama and chaos, because this is what they do from time to time. Then the narcissist would push them away. They would even create more drama. And when they create drama, the narcissist will focus on their own success, pushing their own career, trying to increase their own status. And when there are times where the disorganized person might be needy, might crave attention, try to get closer, then they use this neediness to please their own needs. This is the so-called push-pull dance in a chaotic attachment style. The anxiously attached person has to be very careful because they are people who most of the times end up attracting narcissists. Now imagine this, you've always craved connection when you are insecurely attached and you always feared being abandoned. Growing up, love felt uncertain, sometimes warm, sometimes cold, so you learn to work hard for attention. Then you meet a narcissist in your life who showers you with affection and attention, making you feel safe, making you feel valued for the first time of your life. But soon, and this is this push-pull dance dynamic, they pull away, leaving you anxious and desperate to win them back, triggering your fear of abandonment. But because of your anxious attachment style, you're wired to try harder and give even more. And the narcissist thrives on your fear of abandonment, keeping you hooked with small moments of affection, and it's like a cycle of control and manipulation disguised as love here. How can we now break free from these cycles if we are these 5 personality types? Now, this is when you learn how to spot the big red flags of narcissists early. And I will give to you 3 big red flags for each personality type now. Let's start with the highly sensitive empath here. A very big red flag is excessive love bombing. So the narcissist will overwhelm you with praise and attention to draw you in. Secondly, they will exploit your empathy. They play the victim to get your emotional support while giving none back. Third, they will ignore your boundaries. They will push you to prioritize their needs over your own, making you feel guilty for saying no, while knowing that this is an insecurity and a vulnerability of yours because you never learned to set boundaries. Let's talk about red flags for neurodivergent people. Number 1. They manipulate social challenges. They use your struggles with social cues or hyperfocus against you, making you feel misunderstood, while knowing that this is very typical for neurodivergent people. Secondly, they will gaslight your reality, questioning your perceptions, leaving you confused and doubting yourself. And they praise on your desire for acceptance, keeping you hooked by altering between validation and criticism. 3 red flags for successful people when you want to spot narcissists early. They do jealous undermining. Subtle devalue your achievements or take credit for your success because they want to increase their status and not really care about if you're successful. They demand control. Try to micromanage your decisions or accomplishments to assert dominance in the relationship. And number 3 are insecure competitors. They constantly compare themselves to you, making everything a competition. They do that again because they can't hold the tension or they can't accept that you have more status or are more successful than they are. 3 red flags how to spot a narcissist for the anxiously attached person. A push-pull dynamic is something that they will bring up. They alternate between love bombing and emotional withdrawal to trigger your fear of abandonment. They will exploit your insecurities. They use your need for reassurance to gain control over the relationship. And number 3, they will blame you, making you feel like their emotional outburst or coldness are your fault, keeping you hooked that way. And now for the disorganized / chaotic attachment style and for people who experience childhood trauma, they will amplify chaos, creating emotional highs and lows to mirror and exploit your inner conflict. They foster dependence, making you feel like only they understand your struggles, isolating you from other people to gain control again over the relationship. And they also will control using fear. They use threats of abandonment or rejection to keep you in their orbit. So they will also menace or loom you, saying something like, if you don't change, then I will leave you, or if you don't do this, then I will do that. They threaten you, creating fear and making you anxious to gain control over the relationship again. Now, after hearing those red flags, maybe if you now want to spot a narcissist yourself and never attract one again in the future, I also want to remind you that we have an online community for people who are exactly like us. In our online courses, I share everything that I learned on my healing journey while working with 3 therapists and 3 different therapy approaches. And I took all the exercises, all the skills and strategies I learned from my sessions and put them into a step-by-step path that you can follow along as well. I recently also uploaded a checklist for spotting toxic people like narcissists on the platform. If you want to join now and get access to all that, just become a member at understandable.net/join and get access today, understandable.net/join. Now, what do you think about the topic? Have you dealt with a narcissist before? Maybe you have been in a marriage or within a relationship with a narcissist. What are your experiences? Definitely share them in the comments below with our community. If you want to support the podcast, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, subscribe to the channel, and I see and speak to you in the next episode here on the channel. Have a great day.